Velocity time graphs. Now we're going to talk about different forms of velocity time graphs. These forms are on page 8 in the book. First graph is graph A. As we said before, that if we have a straight line in the velocity time graph, it means that the acceleration is uniform. Now we notice that both graph A and B have the same form, but what exactly is the difference between them? And the difference here is the steepness, or the gradient. Since the steeper the line, the higher the acceleration. Therefore, in graph A, it has a shallow gradient, which means that the acceleration is low, while graph B has a steep gradient, which means that the acceleration is high. Now let's move on to graph C. It has a horizontal straight line, which means that the velocity is constant and there is no gradient. And since the acceleration is the change of velocity with time, so this means that as long as the velocity isn't changing, then there is no acceleration, and it is equal to 0. The last graph here is graph D. We have a decreasing straight line. This means that the velocity is decreasing with time. And if we calculate the gradient and the acceleration, we're going to get for both negative values. And here we can call the acceleration deceleration. Now we're going to see an example from the book of a boat changing its velocity. If we press on the hotspot icon on page 7, we'll get to this example. In this example, we're able to see how the boat's velocity is changing with respect to time using the graph on the right. Also, we'll be able to see the value of the acceleration. Now the yacht is moving forward. It is accelerating slowly, and this is represented in the graph by not a very steep line, but it is increasing though. And the acceleration, as we can see, is equal to 1 meter per second square. Now let's assume that the yacht has reached its maximum speed. This means that now it will stop accelerating, and this is also shown in the graph by a straight horizontal line, and the acceleration equals to 0 meters per second square. We continue to see that the yacht is slowing down, and on the right we see on the graph that the line is decreasing and the acceleration is now a negative. It is equal to -1 meter per second square, which shows us that the velocity has decreased.